that um, okay. Okay, there we go. So, the repository that I'm in right now is just one that I made up yesterday to do. Janet and I are working on turning the Red Cross site into a WordPress site, but right now it doesn't really have anything in it except WordPress, really. So the first thing that I was going to do is, obviously there's status. Actually, here, so what I did when I pulled this up to begin with, I'm not sure if anyone can see. Let me try and actually make that a little bit bigger. Where's my make text bigger?
I can read it for what it's worth.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's pretty small on the screen in here, and we've got Janet and
we've got old people here.
Yeah.
Old people, old eyes.
I'm not in there? Okay.
Well, I guess by that you're not old.
I'll take what I can get.
Won't we all?
There we go. The thing that makes sense to do. How's that? Can you guys see that all right?
Very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just what I did here when I pulled this up is when I started out, I'm on this master branch, and what I wanted to do was check out the develop branch, and for some reason it didn't want to play nice with me, so I did get check out origin develop. Origin in this case is Bitbucket, and that's not really something that a lot of people need to worry about unless you're like deploying on Heroku or something, which we don't really do here. So I'm on the master branch. I want to get on the develop branch. It's git checkout. It didn't like that for some reason.
Did you type devlyop?
I did type devlyop. Hey, good catch. I did that twice actually. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I get. Well, so there's a really quick checkout. A command that I use a ton that I wanted to make sure that I at least mentioned was status. So git status will tell you, and I know that I went over this to begin with, but I was hoping that this week could be something a little bit more interactive. And it says I'm on. It says what branch I'm on, and I haven't done anything. But you can see that. Where am I? Oh, because I don't have a README in develop. I only have a README in master. Well, so if I had a README and I were to make a change to it, I'm not going to mess with anything here right now, then git status would give me basically all the changes that I had done. I can... When you modify a file, it'll say changes not staged for commit, and then just to kind of rehash what that is that I've made a change to this file has been modified, but I haven't staged it to any particular commit. If I was going to, I would do, and then git status would say, I've made one commit. As long as I'm here, I'm going to do a rollback really quick. So git log is another one that people can use pretty frequently, and it'll give you, in this case, the last 5 commits made to all the branches and what their hash is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll back to this previous commit here, which I made earlier today, where I added a gitignore file, which, Darby, did you say that there's a pretty close analog to gitignore in SVN? Is it
Yeah,
just
that's right.
SD and ignore?
Yeah.
So now I am at kind of semantically that previous commit. And then by doing this git checkout, I am reverting the change that I had made. So I'm checking out that file in its most recent iteration according to the commit version that I'm on. Does that kind of make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Yeah. Another one that I'm just going to go over really quick is a diff. So let's say that I'm going to work with, this commit that I made here where I modified that index.php. I just added some white space. So if you do a diff and then you give it a hash for what specific commit you're referring to, it will give you the differences in between the file that you have and the file that exists in that commit. So between this index.php, I've got, I took out these 3 lines, and instead there's no white space there. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? It just gives me a really quick overview of what changes actually happened in that file. If there was more interesting changes, it would be a more interesting thing, but it doesn't seem to be. Yeah? Is this super boring?
Good so far. Good review.
Still awake, you're good.
Okay. So that was git status, git log, git diff. Cool. Those are kind of, so this is what, in addition to that's kind of the list that you had given me, and then I added a few that I wanted to go over. Darby?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, do you want to show anything else, or should I go ahead and start?
I would say go ahead and start, and we can kind of hit on them as we come to them.
Sure.
Oh, you stole it.
Okay, so I'm going to try something a little different. Since a lot of you may be using SourceTree, I thought it would be good to show how the Git commands can be invoked through the SourceTree GUI. Now, I purposely did not do a rehearsal of this, so you'll get to see me fall down in certain places, I'm sure. But my thinking is that if we work through this together, then maybe people can pipe in if I'm having trouble with something. Maybe you see something I don't see immediately, and of course jump in with any questions if something doesn't make sense. But I thought we'd run through some use cases that I drew up that are drawn from my experience on TitleNet and the branch management and deployment that we've had to do for that particular project. And I've kind of distilled it down into some simple examples that we can run through and kind of show you some of the things that you could expect to happen in a typical development workflow. So we'll create a new one. There's a button for that.
So are you creating a new one, or are you cloning an existing repository? Because that's actually an interesting semantic difference.
There is a distinction. I'm not cloning an existing repository. I'm going to be creating a new one on my local machine here. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I don't intend to do any pushing to a remote. It won't be necessary for this demonstration, but certainly we will be pushing to remotes
Right.
during the course of our work.
Unless you wanted to go over merge conflicts.
Right. That's the one thing.
In that same Red Cross.
Yeah, I think we can jump to the Red Cross WordPress repo to demonstrate a merge conflict really quickly.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a new folder and I called it Git 201, and I think I'll leave the defaults the way they are, and we'll put it here in the internal projects for Delta, and there's a little arrow icon I can click on to open that. I think double clicking does the same thing, yeah. Okay, so I've selected to show all files. There's nothing in this repository yet, but let's go ahead and basically initialize the project. Because we'll be using git flow, we should be able to initialize the repository for git flow. So there's a git flow button. We click that and should be able to just accept the defaults here. Okay, I guess I can't do that until I've committed on a master branch. So let's do that. Now, just because I've edited a file, Git knows about it. It knows that it's a file that it doesn't know about, so it calls it an untracked file. Haven't selected to add that file to the Git repository yet. I'm going to try to refrain from using the command line here. So before we get flow in it, it looks like we'll have to commit something to a master branch. So go ahead and add that to the index, and that means that this change is scheduled to be committed. Anything that is not in the stage won't be committed. So I'll click the commit button. Go ahead.
I said, and that's that upper window up there. You've got kind of the bisected area on the left. That top area, that's what's staged for commit.
That's right.
And then the bottom is the files in the working tree.
Yeah, and another interesting option, now that you bring that up, is if you select to show pending, then it will show changes that basically you would see in the untracked section. So changes that you haven't scheduled to commit yet.
Okay.
Those are considered pending in SourceTree.
Instead of all the files, whether or not they've been changed.
Right. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go ahead and commit. Again, you can see that it's only committing the first file, but not foo. Okay, and we're not going to be pushing to any remote, as I mentioned earlier. We'll go ahead and make that commit. Okay, now hopefully at this point we should be able to get flow in it. Okay, that seems to have worked. You can see the two long-lived branches, develop and master. And because develop is my current branch, it's highlighted. Any questions so far? Nope. Okay. So I'm going to add some files to this project real quick. Let's touch bar and baz as well. And you can see they're recognized as files that Git doesn't really know about. They're not scheduled for committing yet. There is an add remove button at the top that can come in handy. It will add all the changes that you haven't scheduled for commit yet, but a destructive operation that it also performs is that it removes any files that Git doesn't know about. So be careful with that one. Just FYI, if you haven't committed something that you do need, remove can get it out of there for you. So beware of that. So we have some files in the project, pretty basic stuff. And so we'll consider that our initial import of existing sources, like the WordPress sources or something like that, right? And now we need to start a new feature. Maybe it's a search feature. So we'll go ahead and start a new feature using the appropriate button. We'll call it search. And it appears to have created the branch. By using the / naming convention, SourceTree automatically organizes the branches into a hierarchy according to the slashes that you put in the branch name. It's kind of a nice feature. So let's say that in order to finish this feature, I'm just going to write the searcher. Often when you switch back to SourceTree, you'll have to refresh it. On a Mac, that's Command R. Okay, so you can see in my uncommitted changes, there's a searcher. As well as some other stuff. Let's see if I can, there we go, add to index. Okay, now after this commit you can see that our feature branch is slightly ahead of both develop and master, which is fine. But now we've finished this feature, so that is, we finished it, we think it's working, we want to show it to the client so that they can look at it, give us some feedback on what they think. So we're going to say that the search feature is finished. Again, we'll use the get flow button, and we'll say that we'll finish the current feature.
Oh, you can keep the branch.
It appears you can.
So that would kind of answer at least part of that. Can you refinish it again after you finished it if you keep it?
Like that?
I don't know if that's what it, I mean, exactly.
What do you normally do? Just let it be deleted, and then when you start something new, get another branch?
Well, Darby and I have been talking, and I guess I've kind of had this problem stuck in my head where frequently he's got, say, a piece that he's working on that he wants to be able to show to the client, like we're going to do now. And the way to do that at the moment is to merge it into develop. And then develop will go up to staging, then they can look at it. But maybe they've got feedback, right? And so you would have to continue, so that feature isn't really finished in a technical way. And so at least I think in this walkthrough, what he does is you would then restart you would start another branch called the same thing and make those changes. But I wonder if you can just keep that branch around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. When I did it at the command line, I wasn't aware of any options to the finish operation. Maybe there are some. Maybe that's what the GUI is exposing here. So when I did it from the command line, it did delete the branch, and then so I simply said to start the same named feature again. So if that answers part of your question.
It does.
Okay. I think I'm gonna let it just kind of behave as it normally would by deleting the branch. We're saying that the feature is finished. I think it's finished, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the branch. Um, so I'll click OK. And now you can see that the feature branch is gone, and the develop branch has incorporated the searcher and other stuff that I added. Questions? Okay, so at this point, we've pushed the changes to develop. We're deploying that to the staging server, and we're gathering feedback from the client. Uh, the client has some feedback, says great, the search appears to work, but let's do a little more. Let's make it prettier or more accurate or what have you. So in order to incorporate that feedback, we'll look at GetFlow again. I'm going to say start a new feature, even though it's not exactly a new feature. It'll be the same one we were working on before. We'll even use the same name. We'll base it on the latest development branch. And so you can again see that develop and the search feature are pointed to the same place, the same commit. And indeed, branches are basically pointers to commits. Okay, so we need to do some stuff to the searcher. So okay, so I have these uncommitted changes. Try it a little different way this time and just click the change that I want and click add. Now you can see that the change is staged. You even get this nice little diff on the right hand side. We've committed those changes now. So okay, so let's say I'm not quite finished with that stuff yet. And while I'm working on Searcher, the client calls and says, oh no, there's a bug in the bar feature, and we've got to address that right now. So I need to context switch, okay? Right now, I'm on the search branch. I'm developing the feedback, incorporating the feedback from the client and the search feature. Need to switch to basically a hot fix. We're needing to fix a bug and do so quickly. And this is really where the power of Git shines, is in the ability to context switch and not lose work. So I did incorporate some of the changes that they were talking about. There are also some uncommitted changes that I'm just not ready to commit yet. So before I do a context switch here, when I have uncommitted changes and we're going to be switching branches around, it's best to stash those changes. Git has the ability for you to have a stack of stashes or a list of stashes of unfinished work. So usually you'll only have one of them, but you're not limited to that, just so you know. So I'm going to say I'm not quite finished with searcher changes and click OK. You can see on the left-hand side I have a stash that says that includes the stuff I was working on.
Hey, Darby, would you check something for me?
Sure.
When you did that stash, there was a checkbox that you didn't check that said, I think it was keep stash changes. Did you see that?
Staged. Yeah, if you had staged any changes for commit, you'd have the option to keep those rather than stash them.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
Okay. So now that we've stashed our changes, we have a what I would call a clean working copy. We don't see any uncommitted changes at the top. So
Yes.
now, go ahead.
Sorry, I guess what my question was is when you did that here, did it go ahead and also reset those files that you had made changes in to the last committed version?
Yes.
Cool.
So that basically just backed out everything you did.
Well, it
Just-
backed it out and it saved it over there in a
Right.
stash.
Yeah, it backed out part of it. Just this part that says more stuff and things.
Okay.
That's the diff in the stash. But it did keep the changes that I made when I said stuff client asked for. When I was incorporating some of the client feedback, I went ahead and committed it because it was done. But then they had other feedback. I wasn't quite finished with it yet when I got the bug report. So
Got it.
I'll stash these changes just to leave my working copy in a clean state so that I can jump around to different branches and not have uncommitted work hanging out there. That can be problematic. You can lose your work if you haven't committed it. So those of you coming from Subversion, you'll want to commit as often as you can in Git. That makes it really hard to lose work.
And then another thing to note is, as I kind of hammered home last week, when you commit, that doesn't actually do anything over the network at all, and it's instant. So it's not like, I mean, when you would commit an SVN, it would have to, that very second, transmit all of your changes to the server. It doesn't do that. There's no network whatever when you commit. It's just a save on your local machine. Does that make sense?
That's right.
So there's no reason not to be committing very frequently.
Yeah, and along the same lines, when you do commit a change, SourceTree gives you the option to immediately push the change. I don't know if we'll be using that option much. Maybe in the event that you're publishing commits on a feature branch or something like that, but we won't dive into that today. So yeah, so the client has reported a bug, and I've put my working copy into a state where I can jump around to different branches and it won't be a big problem. So let me refer to my notes again. Okay, it's a bug in bar. So what we want to do is go to git flow again, and I want to start a hotfix because this is a bug fix that we're going to do really quickly and push out as soon as possible. Call it bar broken. Okay, now you can see that the bar broken hotfix branch has been created, and it's pointing at the same place as master. Hotfixes are by default based off of the master branch, which should correlate to your production or live server. Make sense? Okay, so I'm going to fix the problem in the bar. Jump back to our uncommitted changes, and you can see the changes there. So yeah, here is the option to push commits immediately to whatever remote, typically the origin, but we won't use that right here.
Yeah, something again to note is if you're doing, I mean, I use this all the time, if you're doing any kind of development, with Git, you don't even need a remote. You can do everything on your local machine. You can use your machine as its own little version control tool if you want to. You don't have to have an account set up anywhere. So like for my personal projects or like stuff for class, I can version control, so you don't even need a remote to start. this kind of project.
Okay, so now that bar has been fixed, we're going to go ahead and say that it's finished. Okay. Now let's take a look at what's happened to our branches here. The highlighted commit is the commit that I made to fix the problem. When I finished the hotfix, that commit was merged both into develop and master. So that's kind of the workflow for a hotfix. Questions on that part? Okay, so now with that bug out of the way, we can go back to our search code. I probably can just double click it.
What happens if you just double click the stash? No.
Nothing.
No, okay. I bet you the discard local changes is that hotfix you meant.
Okay, so we're back on the feature or the search branch, and let me just run a git status here. Yeah, it looks clean. So I'm going to right click on the stash and apply the stash. And the default is to delete it. That's what would normally happen. And you can see that from the stash, it's applied the changes that I hadn't yet committed before we moved to fix the bug. So the more stuff and things is back in my working copy.
Does your working copy have the hotfix in it?
No, it doesn't. Because his working copy right now is based off of develop at the point where he branched off of it, and that hotfix happened after that point. So when he goes to merge his branch here, when this feature is finished back into develop, then it will merge the code that he made into the branch that has the hotfix.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, it'll have both of them.
So what color are you right now? Yellow? Pink? Blue? Green? Let's talk color.
Okay, so typically,
Are we muted?
if you come from Subversion, no, we can hear you.
Okay.
If you're coming from Subversion, you're probably used to doing an SVN up very often to fetch changes and merge them into your working copy so that you're working off the latest and greatest code from everyone else. So we have a similar situation here that Janet noticed, where the search feature we're working on doesn't include the bug fix we just made, and that's no good. Particularly if they're dependent on each other in some way. So the way to handle that is through a rebase. And I want to warn people that rebasing can be problematic if you publish the rebased commits. So if you make a commit and you publish that commit and then you rebase it on something else, then the other people won't have that. So that can be problematic, but as long as you're rebasing commits that are local to your machine, it shouldn't be an issue at all. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to rebase the feature branch off the latest and greatest code.
this is one of the reasons that you wouldn't push every time that you commit, because then it would make things like this a little bit more difficult.
And I haven't done this in SourceTree before, so that's not quite what I want. I'm going to try this and see what happens. Okay, this says I have unstaged changes, so I can't rebase. So the way to deal with that is to stash them.
So you're basically stashing the same thing you stashed before.
Yes. Okay. Now really what I want to do is rebase this off the develop branch. And it doesn't look like that's happened.
Hey, Darby?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking ahead of myself. Is there a reason you're not just... Is that the problem that you ended up in that time that we ended up working on it, where you were pulling develop into your feature?
It's not merging or pulling, it's rebasing. So like the work that is represented here that I stashed, that's applied to this branch, and what we want to do is have this branch stem off of the latest and greatest. So that's what I'm trying to do here, albeit a bit clumsy. Rather than spend more time on it, I think I'll try it at the command line now.
But why would you rebase off of the develop when the hotfix went into the master?
Because hotfix goes into develop and master.
Okay, it went into both?
Yes, it goes into both, because it's an identifiable bug that we know there's something wrong with it. So we want to fix it in one place forever.
And I am serious, what color are you when you're working in this? Like, am I always the thing on the far left? Am I always the thing on the far right?
It depends.
Okay.
No, well, it's a fine question. It totally depends on which branch you have currently checked out as to where you are.
So I can be working in any one of those lines.
That's right. You should be working in a branch. Not develop, not master, but you should be working in a feature branch, a hotfix branch, or perhaps a release branch.
Okay.
I mean,
So
it's
in this
subtle,
case,
but it's the bigger circle is where he is on that tree.
Okay.
So that's what you look for to like see on this tree of branches where is Darby checked out right now.
Yeah, and the current branch is highlighted in bold. It's a little subtle, but so yeah. Unfortunately, I apologize. I'm not familiar with how to rebase with SourceTree, but should be able to do it at the command line. You can see that basically it just re-stems the branch. Let's look at it in SourceTree here. So again, we're still on the feature search branch, but now our work is based off of develop. So whatever changes I made to fix the bug, I have those now. So if that bug was posing a problem for my feature, that would be especially important. It isn't always important, but it's something that may be important, so you should know about it. Any other questions? Okay, so we need to reapply the stash that we had before, because that's what we were working on before we were interrupted with the bug report. And I'm pretty sure there's a way to just do this. You can add the changes directly in the commit, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so you can see that the more stuff and things that I needed to add has been added and committed. Make sense?
Can I take half a second and sort of steal your context?
Yeah, sure.
I was gonna want to make sure that we at least mentioned amend because it's super useful. So
Okay.
did you wanna run through that real quick?
Yeah, let's do that.
So the situation you'd use this is it's normally just, oh whoops, I forgot something in my last commit. It's, you know, anything. There's a semicolon, or it's something that's small enough that you don't need to have anything extra explaining why you did it, because it's not anything that there's any real logic behind. It's just, typos or that kind of thing. And you can do an amend, which basically what it does is there's a checkbox on your lower left-hand corner I saw. It will push the changes that you made in between the last commit and now onto that last commit. So it'll just take the last commit that you made and amend it.
And this is a really nice feature I just noticed. If you opt to amend, it will automatically put your previous commit message in there, which is normally what you want. So
yeah.
I'll go ahead and amend that commit with the oops, I forgot my keys. It's warning you that you're changing history. That's okay. We haven't pushed this change out to anybody else, so it's not a big deal.
So you're amending the commit on your machine, but you could you or could you not amend it after you pushed it?
Well, you can, but that would cause problems if someone else had pulled it down. Right, so say you had a typo in a variable name, you said had a devlop or whatever, and you ended up pushing that up. Well, I pulled it down and I say, oh look, this variable is devlop, or obviously something not so intuitive as a typo, and I go on and write 3 different functions using that variable name. If you were to go back and fix the typo and then push it up, then there would be a problem there with a conflict between what you intended the variable name to be and what I thought the variable name was, for example. Does that make sense?
But couldn't Git resolve that conflict?
Not if I had continued to use that variable name, right? Because I would have, 3 functions worth of code using that variable name. You would go back and you would change the typo, but you'd only change it in the one place that you had it.
But then if you committed and they committed, wouldn't Git recognize that and be able to change everything in what you did?
It would not change everything in what I did. What it would do is it would integrate your change, which is at the very top of the file where you declare all of your globals or whatever, change that variable name to what it should be. But when I use it below, it can't tell that, oh, this variable name is supposed to be that other one. That's a little too smart for it. So then it would throw me an error saying, you're using this undeclared variable, and I thought, no, it's declared all the way at the top of the file because I've been acting like it was called something else other than what it actually was. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Brad, or Darby, do you have anything to add?
No, that's fine.
Cool.
Okay, so at this point, we've incorporated all the client feedback into the searcher. We're satisfied that we've done that, and so now we want to call the search feature finished again. So again, we'll hit the get flow button because this is a get flow operation. We are on the search branch, so I'm going to finish that current, and I'll just keep the defaults. Okay, now having done this, you see our feature branch is gone, and it has been merged back into develop. So now that we've done this and everything looks good, we're going to go ahead and deploy this new search feature to the live system. So let's start a release branch for that purpose. I'll call it 1.01. And we have a new release branch. And it points, it's based on develop. It points to the same commit as develop at the start. Okay, so some of the things you might do as you prepare for a release are things like you might edit a version file or something like that, like to increment the version number or what have you. So let's say that we've done those things that we need to do to wrap up the release. And then we'll go ahead and say that we're finished with this release branch. We'll tag it with a message. And so now by having done this, the changes necessary for the release have been merged back into master, which you may recall is should mirror the production server. We also have a tag that points to this particular commit so that we know exactly where in time that was. Questions so far? Okay. I have a couple more use cases to go through. These are pretty pretty illustrative of like what can happen where Git flow falls down because it's kind of a simplistic workflow. I know we're kind of eating up quite a bit of time, so should we go through these and then see where we are, or should we maybe revisit it, or
Yeah, keep going.
keep going? Okay. All right. So let's start a new feature. We're going to call it a big feature because it's going to take us a long time to do it. And let's make a big file. Then click the add and remove button and commit. Okay. Meanwhile, let's implement another feature. Maybe we'll call this one small. Whoops, wrong one. Start a feature. Small.
Darby, is this cherry picking? Is where you're going with this?
No.
Okay.
Not yet, but that will be the one solution I came up with for the problem that we're about to encounter.
Cool.
So you can see we have small and big feature branches. Big is commit ahead because I committed a file for that. Let's do one for small as well. Okay. So we're making progress on two different features. You could imagine this might happen if you're waiting for information on requirements or specifications. You might have to switch from one task to another. It's something that happens pretty often, right? So Okay, let's say that we're basically finished with both of these features and we want to get client feedback for them. So I'll go ahead and say that we're finished with the small feature. Just keeping defaults here. And we're going to finish the big feature too. Okay. Now, you can see that the develop branch contains the file big and the file small. So it has both of the features in the develop branch. Master, however, is lagging behind. We have not deployed these features to the live system yet. Any questions right now? Okay, so let's say that that the client says that everything looks great. Go ahead and deploy the small feature, but don't deploy the big one because the big one needs more stuff. Okay, so we're going to start a new release branch for this very purpose, and we'll call it maybe 1.1.0. And let's say we've incremented the version number and everything, and we're ready to wrap up that release branch. So I'll say that we're finishing the current release branch. And voila, we have. We have released version 1.1.0. But oops, we included the big feature, which is exactly what the client didn't want us to do. And this is one of the ways in which GitFlow kind of falls down when you need to do selective deployments. So, assuming that that we haven't deployed these changes to the live system automatically or something like that, we still need to roll back our working copy to its pre-release state. So we need to basically revert to the previous version. So we are on the master branch. So I'll see if I can get the master branch back to version 1.0.1. Really think there should be a
Wouldn't you do that through hitting the Git Flow button?
No, because in this in this situation, what we want to do is roll back the master branch to basically this point. And Git Flow doesn't have an operation for that, but Git does. I'm just trying to find it in SourceTree. Ah, here we go. Okay, so under Actions, reset to commit. That's what we want. I'm going to use a very handy feature in SourceTree, which is to copy the hash to the clipboard. This is how you identify commits. And let's reset to commit. Well, I don't want to reset just that one file. Let's try it this way. No. Well, again, I'm not sure exactly how to do a hard reset through the interface here. There's probably a way to do it, I'm just not aware of it. But at the command line, we would do a hard reset to that particular commit. Okay, and it tells you that the head is now at that commit, which also the commit message for it. So we go back to SourceTree, kind of revisualize our branches. You can see master has been rolled back to the correct version. So how are we going to deploy small without deploying big? Well, Git has a feature that lets us do that, and it's called cherry picking. There are different ways of handling this, but one possible solution is cherry picking. So because we want to deploy the small feature to the live system, we're going to check out the master branch, which you'll recall mirrors the live system, and then we're going to cherry pick the commits that we want to release. So um, let's see. The commit message is misleading here. It says nearly finished with small feature. Let's say that it's finished, right? I'm going to copy the hash to the clipboard. And should be a way to cherry pick. Ah, here it is. I don't think that's going to do what I want.
Can you select more than one if you hold down
You sure can.
Apple, and then you can cherry pick all of them?
Yeah, you can select multiple. Now, when I have done cherry picking in the past, basically I just apply them one at a time in
Okay.
order at the command line, but I'm not sure what would happen if you tried to cherry pick multiple commits. It seems it'll let you. In this case, we only want to pick the one, the small feature. So I'll cherry pick that one, and it asks, are you sure? It'll be committed immediately if there are no conflicts. Sounds good. So we do it, and now you see that the master branch includes that small feature that we wanted to include. And then maybe we tag that 1.0. I'm going to select to move the existing tag just in case, because it looks like I still have that at the wrong place. Okay. Now you can see that the master branch has been changed so that it includes the small feature and has a tag for the version number. And it does not include the big feature that we haven't finished yet, that the client didn't want deployed yet. Questions?
How do you go back now and work on the big feature?
Good question. We should just be able to check out a branch that's appropriately named for that. In the big feature branch.
Okay.
And then, you would commit your work, then you would say that you'd finished the feature when you were finished with it. If you wanted to release it, then you would create and finish a release branch for that. But it is one thing to be aware of. If you do create release branches and Git flow, it's going to include everything. So keep that in mind. I think that's about all I had if there aren't any questions.
I don't think so. I think this is a nice walkthrough to actually see how this works. This is pretty much based on what you went through with TitleNet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you had a situation like this where there was a feature on develop that the client was playing with in staging, and they said, not quite ready yet, but we want to push this other thing live.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. In fact, that happens all the time with TitleNet. They bounce around between the different things they're focused on, the priority du jour, if you will. Um, and so Git gives us the power to context switch uh, on the things that we need to work on. And then, if we're careful, it also gives us the ability to do selective deployments. Um, but as I illustrated here, the git flow release operation doesn't natively support that to my knowledge. Now, I would challenge any of you to come up with a better solution. This is just the first one that came to mind and that worked for me. So there are probably better ways to do things, but this is what I know so far. I'm still learning.
Hey, Darby,
Yes,
how in the world did you support this kind of workflow in SVN?
we don't. We didn't.
I'm not sure I follow. So how did you version control TitleNet?
Well, we did version control it with Subversion, but because branching and merging in Subversion is so painful, we would
Right.
do everything in our power to not create a branch. If there was any way at all to avoid creating a branch, that's what we did.
Yeah, I think the answer
Uh,
is basically very carefully and very slowly.
yeah.
Okay. So you would commit directly from your local machine where you had the changes that you wanted to go live to production file by file.
No, no.
Is that wrong?
Yeah, it's a little wrong. I mean,
Because
when we
I
would,
mean, if we're using branches and it's functional, and there's still these questions of there's this piece of code in development and then there's this other piece of code in development. How do I deploy one and not the other? But you can't do things like git check out that other branch. It kind of boggles the mind how anything could ever get done.
Well,
yeah, well, you
basically,
can switch. You can switch branches.
yeah, so basically we would try to batch things up. So we would say, is everything ready to go to production right now? If not,
Yeah.
what's blocking that? And maybe we back out that thing that's blocking it.
Hmm.
Uh, so typically that works fine because it's a small enough team and, you know, not there typically aren't truly urgent changes. There's just changes the client is fixated on right now. So
Okay.
it usually works okay to just say, we're going to have to wait until this ticket is ready to go to production before we push all this live. And the client can say, okay, we'll back off, you know.
Okay.
But this just lets us handle those situations much more elegantly.
Yeah.
And the ultimate goal, of course, is for anybody to be able to clone any repository and know how to get a change into production reliably. So, in the case of most of our projects, that should be when you put something on master, that will end up in production. The way it is right now, several of our projects, especially the larger ones, you need to kind of talk to the maintainer and say, how would I go about getting a change in production right now? Is it like in a clean state where I can just push what's in SVN? Or is there something in there that's not quite ready? You have to handle a lot of it in a more, social
Social
context.
way.
Yeah.
So when you say the maintainer, you mean kind of like the primary developer?
Yeah. So, like, if I wanted to push something live on TitleNet, I would talk to Darby right now and say, hey, is everything in trunk cool for production? Or do I need to back off and wait? Or, what's going on with production on TitleNet?
Okay. Is this useful information for anyone else?
Well, I think it is in the sense that we need to be clear on what the point of all of this is. And it's basically to make it easier to get changes done and into production, or done and onto staging. So we avoid having that maintainer be a bottleneck on a project, or avoid having to call that maintainer while they're on vacation. You know, we want to make that type of thing a lot less painful.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool.
All right.
Are there,
Yeah, I guess we're all wrapped up. So I'll throw this video up onto Basecamp sometime tomorrow, and that way people can review if they need to. And one thing I want to let everyone know is we are going to be trying to reschedule code reviews a little bit to be more friendly to our Eastern time zone friends, because it's a little late in the day sometimes for them. Like Nick has been having to drop out a lot because it just gets too late. So we're going to try to figure something out. I'll talk with all of you, and we'll pick something that works best for everyone. So just be aware that'll be happening for next week.
For next week?
Yep.
Okay.
all right. Well, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Darby.
Darby.
Thanks.
Thank you, Darby.
Bye bye for now.